What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2023 schedule preview and projected record series. Minnesota is up next. Minnesota, a very quiet, sneaky 9-4 last year. This was actually a pretty good team that was in the running in the Big Ten West. You look at their schedule here for 2023, and one of the things about Minnesota, you know, I've been doing this for several years and really looking at these schedules. And it seems like Minnesota always has a very weak non-conference schedule. They just don't really schedule a very tough non-conference schedule. But this year they do have North Carolina, and they play them on the road. Also, Eastern Michigan and Louisiana are not horrible Group of 5 teams. So this is a tougher non-conference schedule than usual for Minnesota. They'll open up on a Thursday night at home against Nebraska. That's going to be a huge game to set the tone in the Big Ten West. Winner of that game, they maybe can get in the running in that division. The loser, they may be in trouble. I mean, with all the other games you got to go through, that's a huge game there. So they open up with Nebraska. Then it's Eastern Michigan on September 9th. On the road at North Carolina on the 16th. That's going to be a huge game. Going to be a tough one, though, on the road against that Drake May and that offense. That'll be very tough for Minnesota. They'll play Northwestern after that on September 23rd on the road. Then they get Louisiana at home on the 30th. Follow that up with Michigan at home. Then they get a bye week. Pretty good spot for a bye week because then you got to get through the rest of this grind on the road at Iowa, then back home for Michigan State. They'll play Illinois on November 4th at home. Then back-to-back road games at Purdue and at Wisconsin. Close things out. At Purdue and at Ohio State. And then close things out with Wisconsin. So that's a pretty tough stretch there. Really from Michigan on, there's no easy wins on that schedule. This is a pretty tough schedule here, having both Ohio State and Michigan out of the East. It could be a little worse. At least you don't have to play Penn State. I mean, that's really the only good news here. Michigan State, not sure where they're going to wind up this coming season. Maybe they're middle of the pack in the East, or maybe they struggle again. Who knows? But you look at back-to-back road games at North Carolina, at Northwestern. You got at Purdue, at Ohio State, another back-to-back there. So this is a pretty challenging schedule for Minnesota. Probably one of the more tougher schedules for them that I remember in recent years. So we'll see what the projection looks like. This is the scale that we use. If it's a 50-50 game, that'll stay in the white. That means I think the spread will be less than a touchdown. Under 20, over 80, those are games where I think the spread will be 20 or more points. 20 to 29, 71 to 80, those are games where I think the spread will be about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 points. And then 30 to 39, 61 to 70. Those are games, sorry, misspoke there. 20 to 29, 71 to 80. Those are games where I think the spread will be double digits, 10 to 19 points. 30 to 39, 61 to 70. Those are the games where I think the spread will be about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8, 9 points. All right, so let's get to it here with Minnesota. And it's going to look a lot like the rest of the teams of the Big Ten West. If you've been watching the channel, you'll know what I'm talking about. So Eastern Michigan, Louisiana, those are pretty much guaranteed wins, easy wins. Although I was close to putting these games in the blue. Again, I haven't done a ton of research on the Group of 5 teams just yet, but these programs are normally pretty decent. So maybe Minnesota's only favored by 17 or 18 in these games, or maybe they're favored by 21, 24. It's hard to say. I think they'll be a big favorite though, and we're going to put those games in the green. I think Michigan and Ohio State, those are both games where Minnesota will be a clear underdog, a clear double-digit underdog, probably maybe even 20 or more in these games. Depends on how good Minnesota is this year, obviously. But Michigan and Ohio State definitely going to be big favorites. And when we do the projection here in a second, those will be counted as losses. The games in the green will be counted as wins. So that means you're already at 2-2 if you just go by those games. And these other 8 games, they're going to really determine what kind of season Minnesota has this year. I think they'll be favored by about a touchdown against Northwestern and Michigan State. Northwestern's really a mess right now. Michigan State, that's a home game. This is a team that was not great last year. So I think that they'll be favored in those games. But again, it's hard to say when we sit here in March. A long ways to go. I think they'll be an underdog against North Carolina on the road by about a touchdown. Probably an 8-point underdog, I would say. And then that leaves this Big Ten West. And like I said, if you've been watching the videos, all of these teams in the Big Ten West outside of Northwestern I've kind of grouped them all together and said those games are 50-50 games because this division is wide open. It's always wide open. These teams are fairly even. And so we're just going to go conservative with it and say, you know, these games, they'll split these games. So Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, and Wisconsin, those are your 50-50 games, the games that could really go either way. You win all those games, Minnesota's going to have a great season. You lose most of them, it's going to be a disappointing season. That's really what the season comes down to, though, these games in the division. So for the projection, again, we count the green as wins, we count the orange as losses. We use 35% there for the North Carolina game, 65% for Northwestern and Michigan State, and then 50% for the others. And you get a projection of 6-6. So the way this works out, again, you're already 2-2, and then in these other 8 games, it works out where you just split those games. So they would split those 8 games. They're all close to 50-50 games. You split those games, go 4-4 in those games, 2-2 in the other games, and you get to 6-6. So that's kind of works out, easy math there. It's a tough schedule, like I mentioned. You got a tough non-conference game in North Carolina. You got to play Michigan and Ohio State, and this could be a team that surprises this year. We'll see, but even if Minnesota turns out to be pretty good, I think this schedule could catch up to them, and the record may not indicate just how good this team is because of this schedule. So 6-6, that's the projection for Minnesota in 2023.